Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living and Loving with yours truly, Monique McCall, country music recording artist, singer, songwriter, and I'm going to take you somewhere you've never been before today because we have brilliant entrepreneur with us, TJ Nelligan, author of Live Like Shawn. He's an advocate and he's out there and he's living and loving and he is sharing his message and the message that his son spoke to him and shared with him in all of his time together with his special needs son, Shawn. So TJ, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for all of your hard work. We're looking forward to hearing how you're living and loving.
It's an honor to be here with you, Monique. I appreciate it.
No, of course. So I know I really want to talk to you about your book, but I think we're going to take a moment and I wanted to touch on, your story of how all this began. I know you had a brilliant marketing, sports marketing company. You worked on Wall Street and now you're doing so many things in philanthropy and a great advocate for, your fellow men and women through, your book and all that you've learned along the way through all the trials and errors you've been through. So tell me a little bit more about, your business background and what that looks like.
Well, I started out of college working on worked for Procter & Gamble, and then I worked on Wall Street for 7 years and had a good career, but didn't like it. Every Sunday night, if you're stressed on Sunday night because you have to go to a job on Monday,
right?
That's not a lifestyle, and you're not living your best life.
Sure.
So I got in college sports in 1990 and spent 25 years in the industry, the last 15 with Nelligan Sports Marketing, and never worked another day in my life over those 25 years because it was a passion. And as I spoke to college students at classes around the country, I always told them that you can't be the best at what you're doing unless you love it, you have a passion for it, and it's a lifestyle, it's not a job.
I agree. So is that kind of your definition of success, is doing what you love and loving what you do?
Exactly, just like you're doing.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's why we're here, because we want to share that message. Now, I know you had a very successful sports marketing company. So tell me a little bit more about that, who you worked with and, what you were doing while you were there.
Well, I went to 25 Final Fours in a row, which is the greatest sporting event in the world. The first 10 years, we represented all the major colleges, universities, and the NCAA basketball tournament. Wow. So I ran all the sales nationally for another company and had a great time doing that. And then decided I want to go off on my own and have my own career, because I was always very entrepreneur and I always loved that stuff. So I started my own company, and I did it really because I looked at Shawn and said, he can't do this. Why should I be scared of failing? If you're scared of failing, you can't have success. And you fail along the way and you dust yourself off and you get up and you keep on going. So we built an amazing company. We had about 60 colleges, universities, conferences around the country. We'd sell all their sponsorships to the major Fortune 100 companies, and did it going to sporting events and going to a whole bunch of different things, and just had a great time doing it. And we had amazing employees. And then one day in 2014, one of our competitors decided, they were bought by a private equity group, and they came to us and made us an offer that we couldn't refuse, as they say in New Jersey. So we sold the company. It was a sad day because Shawn and Bobby, his best friend from Special Olympics, worked at Nelligan Sports Marketing, doing all the accounts receivable and, loving their job, and two best employees we probably had.
I remember reading about that in the book. So which brings me to the book. And Shawn, and the story of your beautiful son, Shawn, that, you spent so many great years with and you learned so much from. And so I think a great question that I want to ask and begs to be asked is, you were this brilliant entrepreneur, you were a go-getter, and then through your book, Live Like Shawn, which I think here, where am I? The camera. I think everyone needs to read this book because there are so many profound messages. If you could have learned from Shawn what you've learned over time and applied it before you started doing what you were doing as an entrepreneur and all of your different adventures and your journey, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think that when I started my company and when Shawn got into his teen years, I saw what an amazing young man he was. And he was always grateful. He couldn't spell the word, but he knew it, and he just loved life. And your podcast name, Living and Loving, epitomizes Shawn's life, because he taught me so many lessons, which is why you write a book. If there was only one, there wouldn't be a book. But I think that being present in the moment with the person you're talking to, you know, before he taught me that lesson, if I was at a party and there was a more important person that I wanted to make a deal with, I would say, oh, I'll be right back, Monique. I got to go talk to Mr. Big Shot over here, right?
Or you're always looking over your shoulder. I've seen that a lot. You know, when I'm at events, politicians, they're always looking over their shoulder to see who else they can say hello to. And that's kind of one of my pet peeves, to be honest.
Right, so, exactly. And most people are not present in the moment. They're emailing someone, they're texting somebody. They ask you, how are you doing? They don't listen for the answer. And they don't really care what the answer is, because it's just small talk to them. If Shawn asked you, how are you doing? He meant it, and he wanted to know the answer. And I think he taught me that in so many different ways. But, you know, we went to Derek Jeter's last home game at Yankee Stadium. And the Yankees are winning. So I go, come on, buddy, let's go home. Let's beat the traffic. And he would never leave a sporting event early. He loved sports. So we stayed and saw probably the most iconic moment in one of the greatest players in history, when he hit a walk-off single to win the game in his last home game at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
I would have missed that.
No, and I know, and I read that in the book, that you would have missed that because you were going to leave.
Right.
But Shawn made you stay.
Shawn made me stay, and we saw an amazing moment, and that happened many, many times over my life, where, you know, he knew if somebody was kind to him, he was kind to them, and he formed this bond. And, you know, he had intellectual disabilities, but he always remembered everybody's name. He had this gift. And, you know, in the book, I call it sports math. One day I got him an iPad and he memorized all the college logos, and he loved college sports because we went to so many events. And one day the scores are scrolling across the bottom of the screen on ESPN, and he starts telling me who's winning every game. Now, he can't read or write, and he can't do math. But if we're at a Giants game and the Giants are winning 7-0, he says, Dad, if the Giants score again, it'll be 14-0. And I'm like, holy cow, how does he know that?
Wow. He was really smart. Well, I think, you know, it just popped into my head, even though he couldn't do math, I feel from what I've read in his story that his math skills were in heart math. And Shawn really knew how to live and love, and, you know, from truly deep within his soul. And I love, you know, the pieces that you shared throughout the book, and the messages of, you know, live in the now, be friendly, be a good friend, be grateful, be persistent. And the one that really stood out to me is that he was quick to forgive. Yes.
If you were mean or you got in an argument with somebody, he would always say, that's not nice. You need to apologize. And he could never tell a lie. If you went to the bathroom and he came out and he said, did you wash your hands? He would go, ah, man. And he'd run back in. He couldn't even tell a little white lie. He was too sweet.
Well, I think it's always better never to tell lies, because then you have to remember what you really said. So
right, exactly. And, you know, he taught us what unconditional love really is. And he lived it. It just came naturally to him. All of those things came naturally to him. Now, he didn't have the worries of paying a mortgage or paying your bills, but he never, like we think about, what am I going to do tomorrow and next week? And that adds more stress to your life. He lived in the moment, and he had unconditional love for everyone. Every single night before he went to bed, his ritual would be, he'd get in his pajamas, he'd come out, and he'd hug me, his bear hugs he's famous for, and he wouldn't let go, and he says, I love you. You're a good dad. Am I a good son? And I'd say, you're the best in the world. I love you too, buddy.
Aww, that is such a beautiful ritual before bed. You know, with my daughter, we do a ritual every night, and we talk about our rainbow moments and our rainy moments. And, you know, that just,
I like that.
Yeah, well, I like that you did that, because I think that that's a great recap on the day, and that really makes the difference. And I feel, what I'm feeling is that, you know, Shawn really knew how to live from the inside out.
Right.
So he never looked to the outside. He never looked for anything on the outside. He was always right within. And that's why he was so present. And I think it's that inside out mentality that really keeps you living in the now, keeps you grateful, keeps you on track deep within your soul and with heart. And you can always lead with heart instead of mind.
Right. And his hugs were not just at bedtime. You could be in the middle of a sporting event or the middle of a reception. And if he decided, I need to hug my dad right now, or my mom or my sisters, he would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of us wish that we would act like that, but we don't, because society says, oh, you don't do that in the middle of a party or a basketball game, but he did.
I do too. I do that all the time. Now that COVID happened, I'm really struggling. I've got a lot of hugs, lined up, but I haven't been able to hug people as much. But it definitely, I mean, hugs are healing. I mean, there's a lot of data to show that hugs are truly healing. So, get out and hug somebody. And that's another great lesson from Shawn. And I know through your story that, it was really hard for you when you found out that, because when Shawn was born, he didn't present that he had any issues, I don't believe, from what I read. And you learned about when he was 6 months old, right? That's when he had first signs of something not being quite right. And I understand that was difficult for you. What was that emotion like?
Well, the first 2 years, it kind of unraveled itself like an onion slowly. And when he was 2 years old, we went to the most famous neurologist in the world who wrote the textbooks for neurology students. Mm-hmm. And, he spent about an hour with Shawn, and then he called me and his mom and Maggie, and he waited in the waiting room with my mother. And the doctor just said, basically, he's never going to live a normal life. He has intellectual disabilities. He'll probably never fit into society. He'll never have a job. He's never going to high school or college. He graduated from high school. And the older he gets, the harder it will be on both him and the parents.
Well, I think he's lived a more normal life than any of us have. And I bet that's what you took from.
Well, and that's what I said when I wrote his eulogy. I came up with the term live like Shawn. And I said that story about the neurologist. And I said he was 100% right, because he was an exceptional human being that we should all emulate and act like. Okay. And I came up with the term live like Shawn with some of those stories that are in the book. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but every day. We can all do that once in a while, but he did it every day of every moment of every day.
Well, I wrote a song, which I'd love to share with you. But in some senses, it kind of sums up with what you've just shared, is that I feel like everyone needs to live like every day is Christmas, because people are much nicer, they're much kinder, they're more grateful. And so I wrote a song called Every Day is Christmas, and I'd like to share that with you because I think that may resonate with your story and with your soul. So
I'm sure it will, because Shawn loved holidays, Christmas, mm-hmm. especially people's birthdays, which makes those days the hardest, because whoever's in the family's next birthday was, he got so excited he couldn't wait to celebrate, and just loved the holidays, loved Christmas, still believed in Santa Claus. How innocent is that? That's amazing.
I love that. It would be nice if we could all still believe in Santa Claus. Wouldn't that change things?
Well, and he also was so accepting of people. He spent his life in some special needs schools with people that were in wheelchairs, or they couldn't talk, or they couldn't write. Mm-hmm. And one story that was amazing that I put in the book was the first day he came to work at Nelligan Sports, his mom dropped him off. He worked in accounts receivable with his friend Bobby. Mm-hmm. And that night we're leaving, and we go to walk past the doorman in my office building, and he stops, and I turn around and look, and he stops, and he goes, "See you later, Bruno. I'll see you next Monday. Say hi to your granddaughters." And I'm standing there. I felt about 2 inches tall. I'd walked past this man for 10 years. I'd say good morning, or think I'm being nice. I didn't even know his name.
And he didn't know about his granddaughters. I read that in the book, and I was fascinated. And what I'm even more fascinated with is your ability your admittance to be able to recognize that and to verbalize that and to share that and letting that guard down. So I thank you for that, because that is truly where the even deeper message comes in, that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to trip and fall. It's how you get back up.
Right, exactly. And, he was so kind and nice before Ellen made it cool to be kind, right? He was kind to everybody all the time. I remember a basketball game at his school, and he was the tallest kid, and this little kid goes dribbling past him, and he gets out of his way, and the kid makes a layup. Mm-hmm. And after the game, I'm like, "Shawn, you could have blocked his shot. You're supposed to block his shot." He goes, "Dad, that's not nice."
Well, he's right.
Right.
And there was another piece in the book that I loved that you shared, and it was the relationship between Shawn and his sister.
Yeah, both of his sisters were like second and third mothers to him. And, you know, it was an amazing relationship he had with them, because as they passed him intellectually, and they both just graduated from college. And my one daughter has changed her life, where she graduated college and now she's going to go get a master's in social work to be a social worker at a special needs school. So she, because of Shawn, has changed her life goals and will now, you know, help them. And my other daughter started a fundraising basketball game, which is called Unified Sports, which is the boys and girls varsity team of the high school, splitting up the teams with Special Olympics and playing a unified game together. Half Special Olympics athletes, half the girls and boys varsity teams. And that's now been going on for 8 or 9 years and raises money for Special Olympics New Jersey. But
thank you so much for that, because I know you were the chairman and the CEO of the 2014 USA Special Olympics. I've volunteered for years. I worked with children with special needs for about 10 years of my life. So I really thank you for all of the hard work that you've done and continue to do to support, you know, those children and adults, because they do need a lot of support. And I think sometimes people don't recognize that or, you know, see that. And people are not always so patient. And that was the story that I really loved about your daughter. I don't know if I'm going to say her name right, but it's
Maura and Megan.
Maura and Megan. So, but it's spelled M-O-I-R-A, right?
Right,
So,
the Irish way.
I love that. I'm Irish as well. I'm a Murphy. So, but at any rate, the story that you shared that was so beautiful was that, you know, Shawn had a tendency to be really loud, which is fantastic because he was just him, and that's okay. And that was another message that you had, that it's okay to just be you,
right.
Because you're just beautiful as you are. But I think where you were shocked was that you thought your daughter would be embarrassed, but rather she stood up for Shawn when somebody made a negative comment. And that was beautiful in two veins. First, because she was very sure of herself. And second, because you and your wife have done a great job parenting your children, because for her to know, you know, being younger, you know, that's the way she should handle it rather than embarrassment and getting quiet is a testament to you. So.
Right. And I think one of the things parents need to really understand is that we took Shawn everywhere. His sisters took him everywhere. If anybody had a problem with him, it was their problem, not ours. All of Maura and Megan's friends adored Shawn. And I don't think they would have the friend if the friend didn't adore Shawn. But they both said at certain times when he was a teenager in his early 20s, that we thought, and my one daughter, Megan, graduated from high school and gave a speech at the high school. And the whole thing was about Shawn and what he had taught us, and that we thought we would have to teach him about life and protect him. And who knew that the story ends that he taught all of us way more about life than we could have ever taught him.
I know. And I love how that happens. My kids are constantly teaching me. I tell people are like, oh, you're doing a good job raising your kids. And I said, no, my kids are raising me.
Right.
And I bet you can agree that Shawn probably raised you, right? So
yeah.
What do you feel is the most valuable lesson that you learned from Shawn?
Well, there's so many to pick just one, but I mean, just to be kind and to basically accept people for who they are and what they are and let them be them. You know, we let Shawn be Shawn, and I think that helped him to grow into, you know, himself and to have confidence and to maximize his abilities, because he knew he was comfortable with everybody. He knew if he wanted to hug you in the middle of the mall or the middle of a party, who cares? That's what he wanted to do. And he taught us we should be doing that too all the time. And to be present. I think to be present is one of the hardest things, because as an entrepreneur and type A personality, you set a goal for the company or whatever your career is. And I'm going to get to here after 3 years. And when
you're constantly looking at the future, because that's the way that we're programmed.
Right. So you get to the goal early and you're not happy. You move the goalpost and you set a new goal and you make it higher, instead of saying, wow, I should be grateful and happy now. So being grateful and being happy is not a destination. It's a daily process.
So do you feel like the goalpost will just move itself in time if you just stay in the now and you continue to do what you're doing? It will just keep moving on its own?
Right, exactly. And you got to be present and do what you can do today, not worry about tomorrow, and just plant those seeds every day for your career or your business, and it'll take care of itself, you know?
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, so many beautiful messages. And I know that you have had great success with your book. You've been on Fox 5, and you have done many, many podcasts. And I just really encourage all of my listeners to get this book, because I have to say, even though I've lived a full life and I've learned so much, there were so many more lessons in here for me to learn. And I thank you for sharing those, because I know that it must have been really hard for you, you know, because you just lost Shawn in 2019. And I really cannot even imagine.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I always say this is Shawn's book. I'm just the messenger. And I was the messenger for 29 years of his life at all different stages to, you know, I didn't choose to be involved in Special Olympics. It chose me through Shawn. And what's amazing about Special Olympics is the volunteers say, oh, somebody invited me to come for a weekend to check out Special Olympics. And that was 20 years ago or 25 years ago, because you get more out of it, you know, than you give always.
Absolutely. And that was always my experience when I was working with children with special needs. You know, I learned so much. I really learned so much from them. Their hearts are so pure. That, you know, they're always present. They're always coming at you with love and kindness. And I was so grateful for that experience. Really, I wonder what they're saying about me. They're probably like, "Woo, that lady."
Well, the funny thing about the book was my friend told me after I did the eulogy, he said, "That's your book." I said, "What book?" And he wrote 4 books. He's on TV in New York. And he said, "Live like Shawn. You need to write that book. You'll help so many people." And then he found me the co-writer, Teresa DiGeronimo, who was amazing. It's so hard to write a book. Without her, it never would have happened. But I said, okay, I'll write it. We'll print 200 copies. We'll give them out to friends and families and his teammates and coaches. And next thing you know, the thing took on a life of its own and was endorsed by Mitch Albom, who wrote 2 Faces with Maury, and Harlan Coben, who sold 100 million books. And the amazing talent they have is on the back of the book. It has 1 sentence from each, which captures the entire book. So one day we look up on the Kindle on Amazon. It was #2 in new releases in the fatherhood category. And I was like, are you kidding me? Good job, Shawn. He's up there laughing. I didn't write a book, but it is his book.
He is laughing. And you know what? From hearing your story today, I attribute that to you living in the now. You weren't looking to the future. You weren't looking to write a book. It just came to you. And it was that magic moment. You did it. You put it out there with a lot of love, but not setting any goals and not moving that goalpost. And I think that's how the success comes in. It's when you just let it be. It just comes to you, and you stay present. And all of a sudden, the magic really happens. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. It's all magical. It's all Shawn. I don't know how it happened. I never expected it. I never, ever thought I would ever even try to write a book. And this is all Shawn. This is the magic of Shawn and Shawn's influence on our lives.
Yeah, and he was so influential, and he's been influential to me, and I never met him, and I really, you know, wish I could have, but your book really made me feel like, you know, I did meet him. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Fabulous job writing it. So I hope everyone goes out and gets that book and gets Live Like Shawn. And I hope everyone goes out and lives like Shawn, because Shawn had it right.
Life is better if you live like Shawn.
I agree. So before we hop off, I did have one question for you that I ask everyone who joins me on the podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. You've been a fantastic guest, and in sharing this message, I know that the listeners are going to garner so much. So we thank you for that.
Monique, thank you so much for having me on, and good luck with your career, and live like Shawn and take it one day at a time.
I will. I'm going to keep living and loving. But before I let you go, what I want to know is, as a musician, I always wonder, and as a songwriter, you know, what one song, and I know this is a tough question because it's hard to choose one, but what one song speaks to your heart and sums up the essence of your being?
Well, I think that the song they played at the end of his memorial, which his mother Maggie chose, is Let It Be, because it's really hard.
I knew you were going to say that. You said something early on, and I said, I have a feeling his song is Let It Be. Unbelievable.
Because there's nothing I can do to change it. And when they played that song, you realize it's really true. And then John Lennon had a song about his son, Shawn, who was also named Shawn, and they played that song after I spoke.
Wow. Well, we should all just let it be, right? And when you let it be, that's when you can live in the now and you can stay present. So would you be able to tell me what song Shawn would have picked?
So Shawn loved Taylor Swift. He loved everything. Happy. He always liked the song Happy from when it first came out. And they played that at his memorial too. His sisters chose, and his mom chose all the songs.
And I think that probably did sum up the essence of his being. He was happy. He shared that happiness. So thank you so much, TJ. You've been such a gift. And again, everyone, please get out. Live Like Shawn. If you're not, get a copy of Live Like Shawn. You can get that on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble as well, if I'm correct.
Correct. Thank you.
And then check out TJ and his story on tjnelligan.com. Absolutely fascinating story, fascinating family. They're doing brilliant work. Get out there, everyone. Live, love, and you can see me every Thursday at 4 p.m. right here on my platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn, my podcast. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Love you all. TJ, stay on because I have a few more questions for you. But
okay. But thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much. It has been such a gift, and I look forward to spending more time with you and learning more off air. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.